Hi guys, my name is Jagielski, and the title of my thesis is A Study of Spiritual Formation at Southeastern University. Now, before I tell you what that means, I'd like to thank my advisor, Dr. Hackett, over here. He's been a tremendous help in this entire process. He's been the backbone of me to this whole thing, so I thank him tremendously for that. So Addison already kind of defined what spiritual formation is, but I want to define it specifically here at SEU. So SEU has what's called the Department of Spiritual Formation. And according to SEU's own website, the Department of Spiritual Formation, also known as DSF, exists for the purpose of seeing spiritual growth in SEU students. They exist to let us grow in our faith, to let us grow closer to Christ. So, as I was a student here at SEU, I noticed that a lot of students kind of felt very polarizing opinions about DSF. What I mean by this is some students really loved DSF, and some students didn't really like DSF that much. So my thesis sought to find out why don't students like DSF, and two other more important questions. One, is DSF actually effective in what they claim to do? And two, does this effectiveness level change over time? So for example, if someone is here for 4 years, do their opinions of DSF and chapel and everything like that, do those opinions change the more time they spend here at SEU? In order to do this, I sent out a survey to students of Southeastern University, and I had exactly 200 responses on my survey, so I had a decent amount of work to cover with. After looking at all these responses, I noticed that, like I said earlier, there were very polarizing opinions on this. Now let me be clear, I'm not going to try to bash DSF for things that are negative in this data, but I also don't want to be up here praising DSF for things that are positive in this data. That being said, a majority of the data seemed to lean toward that negative side. 55% of students said that it was not easy for them to obtain chapel credits each semester. For those of us who don't know, chapel credits are simply how students can feel like DSF is making their lives better, in a sense where going to chapel gives you a chapel credit, going to SEU groups gives you a chapel credit, filling out Bible devotionals gives you a chapel credit. Every full-time student here at Southeastern has to get 30 chapel credits a semester, and yet 55% of students said that it's not easy to get these chapel credits on a scale of 1 to 5. Similarly, the main question on here, is DSF effective? Out of the 200 people that responded, 45% of people on a scale of 1 to 5 were in that 1 to 2 range of saying, no, we don't really think DSF is forming me spiritually. That being said, though, there is a positive here because 33% of my respondents were in that 3, right in the middle, saying that yes, I do believe DSF is adequate at spiritually forming me. They're not doing as best as they could, but they're also not the worst. So there's some positives right there. Another positive is for enjoying chapel. For the 200 respondents, I had 40% on both ends of this question. So 40% of our respondents said they're in that 1 to 2 range of no, I don't really like going to chapel that often. But also 40% of respondents were in that 4 to 5 range, saying they go to chapel as often as they can. They love going to chapel. Similarly, though, 65% of students who filled out my survey said that they go to chapel simply because they're required to, and that if chapel was not a requirement, they would not be attending chapel here at Southeastern University. These numbers tended to get lower and lower as the classes went on. So for example, if freshmen enjoyed everything the most, sophomores were here, juniors were here, and seniors were down here. So the study showed that of these 200 students, many of them, not all of them, but many of them found that as they spent time here at SEU, their enjoyment of DSF, chapel credits, SEU groups, their opinion of the whole thing as in general slowly started to go lower and lower. A strength of this study is that I had 200 responses, like I said a couple of times, so there's a very wide range of scope to deal with. But a weakness of the study is that of those 200 respondents, 73% of them defined themselves as white or Caucasian. So there was not a very good mix of diversity in this study. And in the future, I'd like to maybe get some more diversity in this so I can know my research better. Another weakness of this study, as I mentioned earlier, was that opinions about DSF and chapel are very polarizing of students here on campus. Many students on campus either find themselves further on this end or extremely further on this end. Not many students find themselves in the middle ground with their opinions. For a future study, I would like to look at alumni of Southeastern University to see how they feel about DSF and chapel and everything after they've been away from Southeastern for some time, to see as they reflect back on the time at SEU, did they grow? Did they feel like they grew closer to Christ while they were here? Thank you very much.
Thank you. My question is for Aaron. So in your survey, what were some of the biggest areas for possible improvement for DSF, and what were some solutions that you might have thought of?
Hi. Okay. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier with the chapel credits, for those of you who don't know, with chapel credits, every chapel credit you don't get a semester, you're fined $25. So for a lot of students who don't enjoy going to chapel, if they don't go to chapel, it's really hard for them to get those 30 credits. They have a fine at the end of each semester, which is not great. So to answer your question, one thing a couple people responded, one solution many people presented, was instead of having a punishment, have positive reinforcement. So if you get 5 chapel credits, maybe you get like an extra like scholarship added to your account, or you get like, you know, something like that, some kind of positive reinforcement rather than negative punishment for that thing.
Aaron Jagielski.